expectations here at Texas State. We're going to win. We're going to win games. We're going to win championships. We're going to win bowl games.
Well, thank you for sitting down for us, Coach Spav. Kind of walk us through the hiring process, because you came in, you had a really good press conference, but we didn't get to see a lot of how the sausage was made. So what was that hiring process like to come to Texas State?
It was pretty interesting, actually. You know, after we played the Oklahoma game, which is our last game, it was the day after Thanksgiving on a Friday night. We ended up getting in some phone conversations with my agent. You know, called me and said that there's been some talks about you know, interviewing for the Texas State job. So I said, all right, when do we need to do it? And he said, we'll fly out the next day. So like it happened that quick. And you know, I flew to Atlanta and ended up you know, interviewing in Atlanta, and then proceeded to fly back to Morgantown. And they talked about, let's get down for show you the facility and show you what Texas State has to offer.
So they did all of this without like the fans really even knowing like what was happening. So it's really interesting to see, like, you came down and everything. Yeah,
so I went back to Morgantown because I didn't have any clothes or anything of that nature, because it was such a, you know, spur of the moment deal. So what I ended up doing was I flew into Pittsburgh, I drove down to Morgantown. They said, let's get you out the next day. So I was like, all right. So I had to leave my house at 3:30 in the morning to catch a flight and all that out of Pittsburgh. So I was on my way to Pittsburgh, and I got caught in a snowstorm in a car wreck where I was at a standstill on a overpass for about 2.5 hours. And so I sat there, ended up missing the flight, ended up kind of redirecting. I had to change all sorts of different you know, layovers, and ended up landing in Austin at midnight. And you know, Larry Tice came and picked me up, and he was like, let's go check out the facility right now. You know, because one, you want to be a little bit secretive and kind of be cautious of how you handle it around the players, because school is in session and you don't want just random coaches just walking through the facility. So from a professional standpoint, we did it at night, and I was actually impressed with it. You know, from where I'd seen this place for recruiting it for the longest time over the past 10 years, of where it was 10 years ago to where it is now, you can see the commitment and you see how fast this place has grown, which I was actually very intrigued with it after I went through the facility tour. And then, you know, I woke up the next day and I was feeling it. You know, I had a couple other head coaching opportunities I was looking into, a couple NFL opportunities that come about, but it just felt right. And you know, I've always loved this area, and you know, I think the fan base, once you get a little spark here, I think it can be a pretty fun place to be a part of.
Now talk to us about that. When you were going through the, say, recruitment process to be a head coach, did it ever come up about the fan base? Because it can be one of the most engaged fan bases in the country at times, and sometimes it feels disengaged. Did that ever come up?
You know, it did. Of course, you know, you had questions of attendance and why, but you know, there's a lot that goes to it. You know, this is a very passionate state when it comes to football. You know, it's an arms race between every single university. You know, you look at, you know, Texas A&M builds that facility, and then Texas is going to build this, and TCU and Baylor, and they all up their game with stuff. So you see where we stand with stuff, and then you see the potential of it, and you see the student, you know, the student body of how there's about 40,000 students here, where, you know, you can create a buzz and you can create some excitement.
How do you plan to do that? As a head coach, it's not your job to try to get butts in seats, but I'm just saying, like, it is, you know, kind of one of the unwritten things, how to get kids there.
You know, there's a lot to that now. Like, you know, people say that winning cures everything. It doesn't. You know, it helps out. Don't get me wrong. People want to watch a winner, but you got to bring an exciting brand of football. You got to have something entertaining for, you know, fans to watch. And I think we bring that from a defensive standpoint and an offensive standpoint. You also need to get in the community. You need to do as many things with community involvement and outreach as you possibly can, and try to create as much energy and excitement, and just make people feel that, you know, we do this together, you know, and have that kind of sense of pride. So, you know, what I've told my staff many times already, we got to make it a day better. Let's get up and let's try to figure out how we can make Texas State just a day better. And if you continually do that, you're going to end up having results.
Now, you mentioned earlier about the NFL coaching opportunities, and I feel like I have to, it's legally obligated at this point to ask you about that, because I remember where I was sitting. I was sitting at a pizzeria in San Antonio when I saw the news that our head coach potentially is going to the NFL. What went into that? What made you stay here?
Well, it was actually, I made that decision about a month ago.
Okay.
It's just funny how social media, how things just catch on, like wildfire really quickly. But I started off when this was a time right when I took the Texas State job. Cliff Kingsbury offered me a job. And I had other opportunities at certain places because the NFL is kind of changing into a college game. And I ended up saying no to him back then. And once Cliff got the job, something leaked on their side of people that he has talked to about the opportunity. And that's where it sparked up again. So it was kind of, I had to backtrack again and tell everybody that I'm staying here, I'm committed to the program. Because where I'm at and the direction I'm going, I don't need any hiccups like that, especially when you have a staff that, you just brought here and they're like, oh, we're out of a job now, and recruits that you've been telling that I'm going to be here and, we're going to build something special of this. So, you had to go through the whole list again and make a ton of phone calls and make sure that people were good and understood that, I'm committed to this place and was trying to do something special of it.
That means a lot to fans. I'll tell you that their head coach is willing to double down and say that you want to stay here, because a lot of coaches, especially come into G5, they say, okay, I'm going to take the next train out of Dodge. So it is refreshing to hear a head coach say that I would like to stay here. So moving on, how's recruiting going and establishing your coaching staff? It's a transition time. You have to go get recruits. You have to go get coaching staff. How have you dealt with that?
Yeah, the fun part's been putting the staff together, because right now I have a staff that I put up against anybody in the country, which it just shows you the commitment that they've made to me and this university, which that's something I'm fired up for, because I've already had people call on behalf to try to pick them off of our staff already and go to other universities. But we've got the pieces in place. I've got experience from top to bottom, from guys that have had head coaching experience for 18 years to guys that I've been around that I know that are going to be really good coaches and they get their first coaching opportunities. So that's been the fun part. Now, when it comes to recruiting, you're going to have a group of coaches that have deep Texas ties, because I believe you have to recruit this state to have success here, and you have to build the relationships with these coaches around the community as well. So you've got a lot of guys with Houston ties, San Antonio ties, West Texas, East Texas, the DFW area that right now they're showing presence, and they're ripping and running on the road right now, and trying to turn this into a brand that we want it to be.
How's the current scholarship number look? Because that's a question I get all the time now. Is what does the scholarship number look like, and what's it going to look like on August 31st when Texas State goes to Kyle Field?
The numbers are good. That was something that I was shocked about when I got here. Normally, when you go into a new coaching situation, there's going to be a lot of bad numbers where you're going to have to pick up, certain areas and move scholarship numbers around, where you kind of have some skewed numbers for the first 1 or 2 years until you can get it settled down. But numbers are good. There's still some areas that we need to emphasize. But for the most part, we're going to have a solid group of guys that we're going to put out there.
Now, speaking of solid group of guys, the controversy that I had all last year was the debate between Willie Jones and Tyler Vitt. You got two semi-good or semi-young starting quarterbacks, and then you bring in Gretchen Jetson too. How strong is the quarterback room for you right now?
It's getting there. I still don't know what they're capable of, the guys that I haven't been around, and that's the beauty of it. I think you need to have as many quarterbacks as possible, because that's going to be the driver of your offense, especially what we do from an offensive standpoint. Your quarterback better understand what he's doing, and I think that's what these kids are going to bring to the table. I've enjoyed the conversations with them. They like to compete. There's no animosity with me bringing in another guy. I've told them all that this is not a guy that I'm bringing in to be named the starter. It's a guy to come in and compete and make every one of you better. And I like where the room's at right now. I do. Now, if you're going to ask me, do you want more quarterbacks? Yeah, I want to keep trying to take quarterbacks, because I think competition is brings out the best in everybody, and eventually, there's going to be a time where if you have an injury, you need a guy that's going to be quality to step in and still produce the way you want it to.
Talk to me a little bit about what it's like to be a younger head coach, because you are one of the younger head coaches in college football at this point. And younger head coaches automatically get tagged with the player's coach. what I'm just saying, like being a younger coach, how do you balance being a player's coach and then also being, a hard ass?
Yeah, I think the way that you describe a player's coach now is that they relate to him better. Like a lot of that is the age gap is now cut in half, and you see that more and more and more. Every single year there's hirings, and a lot of that is because I can relate to them. I still listen to the same music to them, and as what they do, and I still watch the same Netflix shows and all that stuff. That's where you relate to them. But there's a sense of respect and presence that you've got to demand, and they understand when I raise my voice that it's meant. This is what it's meant to be. Like this is how we're going to vision things, and this is where I think that something's wrong, and then they'll respond to that. But I'm not that type of guy. I don't think you bring the best out of people where you're just yelling at someone nonstop, and you don't have that side where you actually show that you care about them and you're there for their well-being. I had 4 offensive coordinators in college, and they all coached me differently, and I learned from every single one of them. But I was the most productive from the guys that actually sat down and talked to me as a man and said, do you understand where I'm coming from on this? And that was just kind of one of those life lessons at a young age. And being in a coaching family, that I feel like you get more results when you talk to the guy and treat him like a man. And then eventually, if there's a sign of disrespect, that's when you step up and then you have to, raise your voice.
You say treat him like a man. Does that mean holding him accountable like you would anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to hold their hand through things. I'm not going to make them do things that they're not completely comfortable with. And if they're not comfortable with it, then you got to show them why. There's a teaching aspect and there's a human element side to this. Where the best example I've got is all the quarterbacks I've coached. I've coached every single one of those kids different, and I think in today's time, like you can't just sit there and have a bunch of robots out there. You got to coach each kid differently, and you got to understand how they tick, and then you got to bring the best out of them.
You brought in offensive whiz Bob Stint, who what influence has he had on your offensive scheme? Because you have been one of the most prolific offensive coordinators in college football for some years. You've had some of the best young quarterbacks, guys going into the NFL draft. What has he brought to the offense?
Yeah, I've used a lot of Bob's, the fly motion and a lot of these concepts that he's created over the years. He just has never had the national recognition like I have, because I've called it in the Power 5 for almost 70 games, where Bob's been calling plays for 18 years, or probably longer than that. He like 18 as a head coach, 15 at the Colorado School of Mines, and 3 at the University of Montana. So he's called a ton of ball. He's been in a lot of different scenarios and situations where, that's what he brings to the table, is that he's got a wealth of knowledge that he's been put in almost every scenario that you can imagine. But from a scheme standpoint, we've been on the same page. Where I met him 10 years ago at a one-back clinic, which was the air raid clinic at the time, and we were one of the few. There wasn't very many of us. It was me and Dana Holgerson and Cliff Kingsbury, and Mike Leach was there early, and Kevin Sumlin, and Bob Stitt. And the air raid grew a little bit, but now it's kind of diminishing. And Bob's been the one that's kind of stood by it and understands like how we operate, and we coach the quarterbacks the same way.
Is that something Texas State fans should expect to see an air raid type offense?
You're going to see a mixture of it all. Like you're going to see a dominant pass game. It is take what the defense gives you. If they're going to keep giving us simple stuff on the perimeter, we're going to take it. We've got to hold that defense accountable on guarding every single inch of the field. But over the years, where I grew as a play caller is that run game. You need to have some balance with it at times too, and be able to run the ball effectively and efficiently in certain scenarios, so you can either close a game out or just have that mentality of dominance. That's kind of where we, as an offense, people kind of skew that the spread offense is a soft offense, and it's not a downhill tough deal. But like we talk about violence and being the most physical team out there. It's just we play at an up tempo and we spread people out. So it's a very exciting brand of football. That's something that I've taken a lot of pride in, is this offense, and now I get to sit back and I get to play it on both ends and actually manage the game, and worry about those aspects of the game while I've got people handling those sides of the ball.
Now, you mentioned that you come from a football family. You got lucky enough to have or lucky or blessed, or however you want to say it, you got lucky to get your brother on your staff. What does that mean?
Yeah, for the longest time, like it wasn't until about a couple days ago when it was for sure that, he was staying, which he made the commitment to me when he made the commitment, he told me if, these 4 places, call, like, will you allow me to look into this? Because I've been talking about these for a long time. I said, yeah. Unfortunately, all 4 of them called. So it was a great deal. He's a well-respected coach. I've watched him build defenses that are really bad and turn them into really good defenses, and be an integral part of that. And also, just the recruiting he does in this state. He's probably one of the best ones in the country.
Well, he gets a pretty good defense. Texas State's known for having one of the better defenses in the Sun Belt Conference, so that's good. Moving on a little bit more. Spring practice. Do we have the available dates yet? Do we not? Do we know what we're going to do with that?
Yeah, I'll do 6 practices before spring break. All right, and it'll be kind of a little hectic where we'll start, I think, the 4th, that Monday, and we'll go back-to-back practices there, and I'll try to rotate practices every other day until spring break, and then 9 practices afterwards.
Should the fans expect something for the Maroon and Gold game? Because in the past, they've had open scrimmages. Should fans mark their calendars now, or is that something we should wait on?
They should mark it.
Okay.
We'll have a full-blown scrimmage on that day.
Okay, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I know the fans.
That'll
be
April
excited.
13th, I believe.
Okay, April 13th. Mark that down, fans. Well, it's one of those things where that I think would be a really good opportunity for not only the Texas State Bobcats but the Jake Spavital Bobcats to kind of get their recognition, right?
Yeah, but also the way NCAA is with the rules and how many times you can tackle and how many times you can practice. Like, we can't, it has to be a practice that is very important to us, because we've got to implement our schemes and what we're doing, and we can't have a day off when it comes to the allotted time that we have. So, that's going to be a time for these kids to get in front of people and see if they can execute at a high level. And, I always like that element of people watching. So we can see what they're capable of doing, and that's always been something that we've done in the past is, throw it out there in the spring game and let's see how you're going to perform.
You mentioned a great coaching tree earlier at your one-back practice, or at your one-back camp. Dana Holgerson, friend, colleague, moves to Houston. Is this good? Does this give you another guy that you can kind of talk to if you need some help, or is this bad that now we have a recruiting battle on our hands?
No, I think it's good.
Okay.
He has his vision, I have my vision, and we're in 2 different conferences. There's plenty of talent in this state, I can promise you that. You just, when you're at schools like Houston and Texas State, you just got to roll your sleeves up and go work and find some of those guys that have slipped through the cracks.
I love it. Last question. You had a pretty famous line in your opening press conference. I don't know if you realize this yet, but you said that you wanted to bring wins, conference wins, championships to Texas State. That's something that a lot of people in San Marcos haven't heard in a long time. Talk to me what was going through your head. Was that just an off-the-cuff line, or is this something you really believe?
Yeah, I think every program that I've been around, we've won, and that's something that we take pride in, I haven't been a part of very many losing seasons, so that's something that that is kind of cultured into everybody that I brought into this staff and into this organization. Is I want people that are going to be relentlessly working and trying to make this place as best as it possibly can. And we're here to win games. We're not here to just go through the motions and then get out of here in a couple of years. We want to win games and win championships and win bowl games. That's the goal, and that's, if you don't have those goals and dreams and aspirations, then I'm not the right guy for the job. So you need to have people to come in and galvanize as an entire university and see if we can get this place rocking.
Last thing, talk to the fans for a second. What do you want the fans to know right now on January 22nd about this Texas State team?
You got a lot of blue-collar fighters right now that I think they're itching for success, and they're putting everything they got into this right now.